Good morning. Awesome. Hey, how many of you, when you're playing games with your kids or your grandkids, do y'all just let them win? Oh, praise the Lord. Good. I was hoping that was going to be your answer, because I'm that way. Like, if I'm playing a game with my kids, I'm going to win until they actually earn the win. I'm not going to give it to them. And I remember this past week a story that I think might have influenced me to be that way. There was one time, I'm pretty sure I was in middle school. My uncle was in town, and I asked him to go and play basketball with me. And I went down. As every middle schooler who has ever picked up a basketball thinks that they are just the best basketball player ever. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm young, he's old, I'm in shape, he's not. I'm gonna get the best of him all night long and show him just how good I am at basketball. And for the next 30 minutes, I took the beating of a lifetime. And I'm telling you, not one bit of sympathy. It was, if I went up for a shot, he blocked it every time. If it didn't block it, he made me miss it so bad. Or if I'd be dribbling, I think I had some moves, he'd steal it. And then I swear, maybe this is just how I remember it, but it felt like he was just doing no-look shots, and it was back and forth. And I'm telling you, I just took the beating of a lifetime. And here's what happens to me. Maybe you're like this. I'm going to let you hold that. This is what happens to me. Whenever I get to that point where, like, you just keep coming, and I'm finally ready to fight, you'll know I'm ready to fight when you see me crying. Anybody else like that? Like, you just eventually, like, when I get angry, I cry. Not like in a sad way, but just in a, like, I don't know what else. If I don't start crying, I'm going to start crying. You know what I'm saying? Like, something's going to break. So I knew it was going to get ugly. He's sitting here, he's just wearing me out left and right, and eventually the tears start coming. I'm ready to fight a grown man in the driveway. And since I couldn't do that, man, I just felt like I was so frustrated. It was like if I went right, there he was. If I went left, there he was. Like, it was like he had 8 arms in this game. I couldn't get the best of him, and he finally wore me down to the point where I was ready to quit. I just had enough. No matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. And I was just ready to quit. And I've done prayed with multiple people today. I've talked to a bunch of you this week. I know that that's where a lot of people's at right now. That you just everything you try, nothing ever feels good enough. You just on, and the attack just keeps coming. And you're at that point where you're like, nothing's getting better. And we're just ready to throw in the towel. You ever get there in your mind where, like, things will happen, and you finally just get there and you go, you know what? I think that this is just going to be my permanent situation. That it's always going to be disappointment. It's always going to be disaster. Honestly, I've been through some seasons where I'm almost afraid to ever be happy even for a moment, because I feel like as soon as I am, that the shoe's going to drop the next day. Anybody else? Been there before, ready to just, like, seriously, it's like you've ever been, you go, I swear, if one more thing happens, I'm going to break. Like, I don't know what else. I'm going to tell you, if that's you, the Lord gave me a word for you today. He gave a word for me. It's in 1 Samuel 27. 1 Samuel 27. Let me get you, just if you haven't been here, let me catch you up where we've been. We've been going through the book of 1 Samuel. But David is the rightful anointed king of Israel, but he has not yet assumed the throne, because King Saul, who is a madman who's been chasing David around for over a decade, is still the king of Israel at this time. Now, in the last 3 weeks, David has had 2 opportunities to end Saul's life. He catches him one time in a cave, another time sleeping. He could have ended it all. David could have had his life back. He could have had his family back. He could have had his home back and everything. He could have had it all back if he had just said, you know what, I'm going to give Saul exactly what he deserves. But he allows Saul to live. He gives him a free pass, even though David was never wrong. Right? He wasn't wrong. Saul just came after him on false pretenses. David was completely innocent. You'll resonate with this. Let me show you. Do you know what David got for all of his faithfulness? You know what David got for doing the right thing? Let me show you what David got. Verse 1 says this. But David kept thinking to himself, someday Saul is going to get me. You know what David got for all of his faithfulness? All of his, I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right thing. You know what David got? He got a crushed spirit. That's shocking, right? Because someone along the way told us that when we get our life together, when we start going to church, we start headed down the right path, when we start trying to make better of ourselves, someone told us that it's supposed to get good. And when it doesn't get good, we start going, well, what's the problem? Because here I am trying to better myself. Here I am trying to get my life on track. And the more faithful I am, the more it seems to go wrong. David is going, you know what? No matter how many times I pardon Saul, no how many times I get it right and do good to him, he's never going to stop coming after me. I feel bad for David because I know what that feels like. And my guess is David just starts thinking, you know what? If I would just have, last time when he offered me to come back to the palace, I know he would have killed me, but if I'd have just done it, at least it would have been over. We start thinking, honestly, if we would just give in, I know he'd leave me alone. If we would just give in and stop fighting. Because for some reason we think that our faithfulness is supposed to only lead to good times. I'm doing the right thing. I'm trying to be a better me. And the enemy just keeps attacking. Maybe you've gotten to this point, I've been here before, where you go, honestly, if he's not going to stop, then what's the point? What's the point of all this if he's never going to leave me alone? What am I doing all this good for? What is all this faithfulness for if he's never going to stop the attack? You start to kind of get into that defeatist mentality and you go, maybe I should just quit. Maybe I should just lose hope. Maybe I should just stop being faithful and he would leave me alone. Here's what I think we miss when it comes to the presence of an attack or a battle in our life. Is we always have the tendency to think that the presence of a battle or an attack means that we are in the wrong place, or that we're the wrong person, or that something is going wrong. But maybe you know this from the way that warfare takes place, or you look at something as kind of modern as terrorism. The enemy doesn't attack inconsequential targets. Thank you. I thought y'all would be more excited about that, to be honest. Because if the presence of the attack in your life, the presence of the battle witnesses to the fact that you are a high-value target. That's why the attack always comes. That's why he won't leave you alone, because you are not inconsequential. Because you do have value, because you do have purpose, because you do have a calling on your life. That's why he won't stop coming at you. You're a high-value target. And so the battle or the attack actually testifies to the fact that you're right where you're supposed to be. Can I give you the flip side of this real quick? Because I know there's some of us that we just sang it. We've been fighting a battle, and our hands will be raised. There's tears streaming down our face because we've been there, done that. We're living it right now. And other people are going, what is this battle he's talking about? Man, my life is just amazing. You know what the old timers told me when I first started ministry? They said, if you ain't coming face to face with the enemy, it's because you're walking in the same direction. I didn't like it either when they said it to me. So like if that was you go, oh, you're about fighting no battle. I ain't been fighting no battle. Which direction are you walking? Because if you're dangerous to the enemy, he's coming at you. There's a target on your back. If you're living out faithfulness, ladies right here, y'all trying to get clean, sober, trying to get your life right, yeah, you're dangerous to the darkness. You are. That's why he's going to attack you. Those of you in this room, you're trying to shake free of something. You're trying to put some stuff from the past behind you. You are now dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, and you are now an enemy of his. I remember I was writing in my prayer journal this week. This has been, this message didn't just, there's no coincidences. God goes, I knew everything that was going to be happening with everyone in this church long before this sermon was ever written, and that's why he sent it when he did. I wrote in my prayer journal this week, I said, I am reminded this week of just how much the enemy hates me. I am reminded of that this week. But I'm also reminded of just how much my Father loves me. Listen, there's a story in the New Testament. I love this story. That Jesus tells his disciples, he says, hey, we got to cross the lake. Y'all go on to the other side, and I'll meet up with you later. So he puts his disciples into the boat. He sends them off. He's like, I'll catch up later. When they get out into the middle of the lake, there's a big storm hit. Could you imagine me, the disciples are going, this Jesus, he works miracles. He seems to know people's thoughts. How in the world did he not know that he was sending us right into a storm? He had to know that the storm was coming. It's who he is. And yet, he sent us in there anyways. Of course he did. Because the fact that you're in the middle of a storm is not testifying to the fact that you're in the wrong place. It's testifying to the fact that you are right where you are supposed to be. That's right. The fact he won't leave you alone is evidence that you are on the right path. And here's why I think, even though this story, you're going to read, you go, man, it looks like David came out okay. Yeah, David did come out okay. But look at the decision he's making, because I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's a decision me and you should make. We talked about this last week. It's going to go okay for David, but you ain't David. Look how crushed I think his spirit really is. Look where he is at mentally. And the next thing he says in verse 1, look what he says. He says, verse 1. Watch this. There it is. Boom. Someday Saul's going to get me. The best thing I can do is escape to the Philistines. I'm sorry, excuse me, David? Your plan, because your one enemy will not stop attacking you, is to go and shack up with the other enemy? You're now ready to run from the very people that were trying to kill you because the other enemy won't leave you alone? This is going to work out for David, but I don't think it's a good idea for you. Because David, a couple chapters ago, he tried to go live with the Philistines and they didn't want him. They turned him away. But this time, because word got out that Saul and David were on the outs, now the king goes, aha, there's an opening. You'll see it in the passage, I'm going to invite David in now because I'm going to make him serve me. So at the moment that you start to get so crushed in your spirit and discouraged that you're ready to give up and you go, you know what, I'm just going to go back to my old life because I keep trying and I keep failing. You know what you'll find? An enemy with his arms wide open. Oh, come on back. Come back down depression and addiction. Come back and shack up with cynicism and sin. Come on back. It will welcome you with open arms, but it will be your destruction. Oh, the enemy will welcome you back. I don't think you should take that path. Now, David goes and he talks to King Achish of Gath, and he goes, oh, absolutely, come on in. All in the back of his mind, he goes, I'm going to make him a servant. I'm going to use this conflict in his life to make him subservient to me. That's what the enemy's trying to get you to do in the battle that you're in. He's trying to use it to be the thing that he can finally crush your will to where you'll come back home. Come on back to the enemy. But now here's what David does. David goes, you know what? I don't want to live in the royal city of Gath. Would you let me and my men go and live in one of the country areas? Achish doesn't know what's going on, so he says, absolutely. He gives him an area called Ziklag, which is going to end up being a really powerful and prominent city for Judah later on in history. Now I want to show you what David did. Even though it looks like David's going, you know what? Saul's never going to stop. Saul's never going to stop. Here's what David did. Verse 8. David and his men spent their time raiding the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites, people who had lived near Shur toward the land of Egypt since ancient times. Verse 9, David did not leave one person alive in the villages he attacked. He took the sheep, goats, cattle, donkeys, camels, clothing before returning home to see King Achish. Pause. What was David doing? What David did was he went and he lived in this country town of the Philistines called Ziklag. And he would go out on these raiding parties, and he would overtake the cities of the Philistines. He would go and raid the southern cities of the Philistines, which you might go, well, why is he doing that? Well, here's the issue. If you go and read back in Joshua and Judges, when the Israelites were supposed to go into the promised land, they were supposed to drive the enemy out completely. And what you see, especially in Judges 1 and 2, you go and read that, nothing but compromise. They came up to one area in the promised land when they were coming through, and they were supposed to be pushing all these people out because the promised land was meant to be for God's people. They come up to this one, and God said, listen, I'm going to be on your side. I'm going to fight the battle for you. And they come up and they go, this one group of people right here, they have iron chariots. So we just let them stay. And then this other one, there was another one where they go, well, they just really wanted to stay. And so we just let them. I'm going to tell you right now what happened. The reason why to this moment that the Philistines are still in the promised land when they were never meant to be there is because the Israelites never went and drove the enemy out the way that they were supposed to. That's why they have the Amalekites and all these other folks still in the promised land. It's because they didn't go and do it. And can I just tell you right now, if you don't drive the enemy out, he's going to be your neighbor for life. You want to keep playing games with the enemy, keep letting him hang around, he's going to be your neighbor for life. Think that we can just mess around and keep the enemy close. Well, no. If you don't fully drive him out, he's going to shack up with you. That's what's going to happen. And then verse 10, he goes back to King Achish. Achish says, where did you make your raids today? David would reply, against the south of Judah, the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites. He tells Achish that he's down there raiding Israel and not his own people, the Philistines. It's very clever. Here's what we see. Here's what we see. David, even though it looks like he's kind of resigned to this idea, like, it's never going to get any better. Saul's always coming after me. I'm going to go live with the enemy. Even in the midst of the attack and even in the midst of the battle, he never stops doing the right thing. So I just want to tell you, because I've heard you, we've all been here. Maybe we're here right now in the battle, in the attack. Don't get tired of doing good just because the enemy won't stop attacking you. Don't stop doing what it is that God has for you just because the battle is now waging in your home. Don't stop being faithful just because the arrows are flying at you. Don't stop. I'm begging you, like, even if it feels like it's not getting better, but it feels like it's getting worse, don't stop. That's right. Don't stop the faithfulness. Don't stop where God is sending you. Continue to be faithful and obedient. See, what David is doing what kings were meant to do. He's purifying the promised land. He's doing what he was ultimately called to do. Don't get tired of that. Even if you got a busted up marriage and you're tired of working on it, don't stop fighting for your marriage. Don't stop fighting just because it looks like it ain't getting better. Even if you have tried to get sober or free from some sort of sin or addiction and you've fallen 100 times, don't stop. Maybe you've got health concerns, financial concerns. There's just battles waging in every area of your life. Whatever it is, do not stop because you do not know when the breakthrough is actually coming. There's a story in the Old Testament that I love. It's about the conquest of Jericho. And God told them people to go and walk around the city all this different times. And on the last day, they were supposed to walk around 7 times. Could you imagine just walking around this city? You're going... They don't even have no weapons. So they're like, we don't even know what God's about to do right here. And they're walking and walking. And they get to number 6 and they're like, you know what? Nothing's really getting any better. Here we are just walking. Nothing's happening. But because they didn't stop on 6 and walk through the 7th lap, that's when the breakthrough actually came. So you don't know how close you are to the restoration of your marriage, how close you are to the restoration of your health and your finances and your calling and your career. You don't know, so don't stop. So it might be the next step. It might be the next prayer. Don't give up on your kids. Your next prayer for your kid might be the prayer of breakthrough. Amen. Don't give up on your spouse. It might be the one that changes everything. Don't give up on it. In fact, see the battle for what it is. We have an internship program here, and right now we have 2 different interns going through seminary school and working here at the church to gain ministry experience. And when I got back from sabbatical, one of them came in my office and just told me, while I was gone, just kind of how ministry had been going and life had been going. And I kind of smiled a little bit. Because I'm going to let her come tell you about it, but it was one of those moments where I go, I'm not shocked by this at all. I'm going to have Aaliyah come tell a little bit of her story.
So, I intern here, like he said, for some of you that don't know. And whenever I answered that call into ministry, a target was literally placed on my back. Really, it was placed the moment that I even started following Christ, but as soon as I said yes to ministry, that target just grew, and I wrote, "Attack me," on my forehead. No, seriously though, when Scott was gone on his sabbatical, he's gone. My mentor, our leader here, it was just like he left, and it was time for all of us to step up. And I was getting ready to preach on a Sunday, and a whole bunch of attack had been happening in my mind, mentally, like the stuff like I'm not good enough, I've had distractions, I've felt overwhelmed, anxiety that I haven't had for many, many months was all flooding back in at once. And when he was gone on his sabbatical, preparing to write, and the enemy says, "You're not good enough to do this. Leave ministry. You can't preach. This isn't for you. Your past, they're not going to listen to you because of your past. You're not good enough for this. You're not called to this." I mean, he was just throwing it at me. Arrows flying. Boom, boom, boom. I literally thought about giving up so many times. I wanted to quit my school. I told my husband, I called him one day and he said, "I'll support you in whatever you want to do." I said, "Okay, I want to quit school." Why are you supporting that? Pastor Anna, I tell her, I said, "I cannot preach this on Sunday. It is Thursday at this time." I said, "I can't preach this on Sunday." She said, "Oh, yeah, you can, and you will. You don't have that option to quit." Because I'm a threat to the enemy, right? I'm a threat to the enemy. So he's going to be attacking me left and right. But God has equipped me. God has called me to this. Just because the battle is hard and tough doesn't mean give up. Keep fighting. Because God's going to be the one to carry you through. Do not give up. Because like Scott just said, there's a breakthrough that's going to happen. So, there we go.
I did when she came in and she told me that. I said, "Well, welcome to ministry." But truthfully, like, you don't have to be a pastor on a staff for that to be true of you. The moment that you decided to start taking your next steps on your faith journey, you became dangerous to the enemy. So every step that you take, he's going to fight you. It won't be till you stop taking steps that he leaves you alone. Every step you take, he's going to be there to call out what you did, how you failed. He's going to send people into your life to attack you, say horrible stuff about you. He's going to do everything he possibly can to try to drive you into the ground if you're on the right path. He just is. We might bend a little bit because it's tough. But as a church, let's make this resolution today. We might bend, but we are not going to break. We are not going to give up. God has something so special for each and every one of you. And that's why you're being attacked. We're not giving up. I'm going to say something. It's probably not real theological or pastoral, but you guys have probably come to get used to that by now. Because I don't want to minimize the attack and the pain. I want to make sure that you understand my stance on it. Even though I said, hey, it might be a good thing, I will also say this. The battle sucks. It just does. I wish there was another way to get us where God wanted us to go, but the battle just sucks. It just does. But let's not give up. I read a story this past week about John Stephen Akwari. He was a Tanzanian marathon runner in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. And in Mexico City, the elevation is high, and so people were having trouble during the race with oxygen and all sorts of things. And John actually ended up taking a pretty bad fall. And that's where he busted up his knee pretty significantly. He busted up his shoulder and his head in the middle of a marathon. Marathons are probably difficult enough if you're not dealing with 3 different injuries. 18 people that day decided to quit the race simply because of the oxygen issue. Akwari falls. He's got a choice to make. I mean, everyone else is quitting. Why not? Why don't I just quit? I've got a pretty good reason to quit. What he decides anyways is to bandage his knee up and to continue the race. So he just begins to start running, and he runs until he can run no more. Till he cannot run anymore. You know what he starts to do when he couldn't run anymore? He decided to just start limping. Just decided to start limping. And I wish this was one of those stories where I go, and he got the gold medal. But he didn't. It was like over an hour before he's going to finish. The winners have already been crowned. They've already got their medals. They've already sung the national anthem. And the stadium where they put the finish line is now emptying out. Most of the crowd has already left. But for the ones that remained, over an hour after the gold medal finisher, this is the picture that they see. Akwari walking, limping into the stadium. When the people finally see what's going on, a cheer for him erupts, and he gets the strength to run the last 300 meters of the marathon. John, you already got last place, dude. There's no medal to be won. The crowd has already left. Why did you, everyone else, people quit for less that day, John. Why didn't you just give up? You had every reason in the world to give up. In fact, a reporter asked him that after the race. He said, my country did not send me 5,000 miles to start a race. They sent me 5,000 miles to finish one. And I'm telling you right now that even if you have to limp to the finish line, you are going to make it. Even if you are busted, broken, bruised, bandaged, you might limp to the finish line, but you can make it. That can be your story. Oh, but I failed so many times. Start again. If you got to walk with a limp, just walk with a limp. There's too many daggone Christians acting like they don't have a limp, to be honest. Even if we're beat down, we're going to finish. And we will not stop doing good just because the enemy keeps coming at us. We're going to keep pushing through. You're going to see your kids through. You're going to see your grandkids through. You're going to see breakthrough. You're going to see victory. Because this is what happens when you keep on pressing, when you keep on pushing past what you thought was even possible. That's what's waiting on the other side. Do not give up just because the enemy keeps coming at you. Consider it a compliment, even though it sucks, and keep going.
That's right.
And keep going. Because listen, this is exactly what Jesus did. See, the enemy threw everything he possibly could at Jesus. Beat him within inches of his life. Forced him to carry a cross whenever he was already in hypovolemic shock. So bad he's fallen through the streets of Jerusalem, they had to have someone else come and help carry the cross. In pain and agony, he goes to the cross. And when it looks just like the enemy was getting the best of him, little did he know that the enemy was doing him a favor. Because through his death and resurrection, the pathway to new life has become available for each and every one of you. And he brought it through the struggle, not in spite of the struggle, through the struggle. Because he stayed on, Jesus could have at any point gone, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going through with this plan. He had every right in the world that he could have done that. And he chose to go through it for you. He didn't give up on you. You're not going to give up on him. You're not going to give up on your kids, on your marriage, on your calling. You're not going to give up either. We might bend, but we will not break. And we are not going to stop doing good just because the enemy won't leave us alone.